everyone, welcome into the South to Central Florida Sports Report. I'm Ken Landis, and this is episode 2 of the South to Central Florida Sports Report. The first one had some technical difficulties with microphone and video and adding pictures in, so it was a little bit difficult. I tried it from the iPhone, and now I'm going to go ahead and try it just for my computer, for my laptop. Always working to better the show and to work out the kinks in the process. And once again, if this show takes off, I'll obviously upgrade some of my equipment, but we'll see where that goes. But anyways, there's a lot going on in South Florida sports, so let's go ahead and get straight into it. I'll go ahead and show you what's on today's show. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Panthers and their red-hot streak of 6 straight wins, creeping up on that second wild card spot, and spring training has started, one of the coolest times of the year. We're going to get into the Heat and their playoff scenario as it's still looking okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about UCF baseball starting, basketball's ending, and a surprise at the Combine from Shaquem Griffin. We're going to go ahead and talk about all that coming up. So let's go ahead and talk about the Florida Panthers, and man, have they been on a tear. They've won 13 of their 16 previous games. 35 days ago, they were 10 points out of the second wildcard spot, and today they are only 1 point out of that second wildcard spot, and they're only, I believe, 4 behind the New Jersey Devils for that first wild card spot. And obviously this is much improved from, they're probably the hottest team in hockey right now, much improved from, a month and a half ago. So they're looking to creep into that last playoff spot, and they've actually got a really good chance to do it. So we're going to go ahead and look at the standings right here, and you're going to go ahead and see how much of a chance that the Panthers have for yourself, and then you can go ahead and judge based on what the standings look like if you think they can get in. So here you see the Eastern Conference wildcard standings, and the Panthers are at 70 points, only 1 behind Columbus and 4 behind New Jersey. As you see, the Panthers are 8-2 in their last 10 with a 6-game winning streak, and Columbus is struggling a bit at 4-5-1. And everyone below the Panthers is struggling as well. Carolina 3-5-2, and then you see the rest going down. I've eliminated Ottawa and Buffalo from this picture because they're not really in it at all. But as you see, the Panthers still have those 3 games in hand, which essentially is 6 more points on the table, and then they're equal with the other games played. And that is obviously really good, and the Panthers also hold the tiebreaker in that row column, which is regulation plus overtime wins. They hold the tiebreaker by 1 over New Jersey and 3 over Columbus. So the Panthers really have an important stretch here coming up, and we're going to go ahead and show you that important stretch. I'm going to go ahead and let you look at the schedule here for the rest of March. So you saw in the standings that Columbus is only 1 point ahead of the Panthers, and there's a huge game based on importance for the playoff picture when the Panthers go to Columbus on March 22nd. That's a huge game, but lots of other huge games scattered around the schedule. The Panthers play an Ottawa team that's struggling 3 times, as well as a Canadian team that is also struggling. The Leafs and the Bruins are obviously 2 big divisional opponents, but the Panthers really don't have a chance to catch them. An important game on the 24th that the Panthers must win against the league worst Arizona Coyotes, as well as a big game against the Islanders and the Rangers. And obviously the Lightning are always an important game, trying to build up that rivalry. But another month that the Panthers really need to dominate here upcoming if they want to get in that playoff picture, especially on March 22nd against the Columbus Blue Jackets. This site is one of my favorites to check throughout the season. This is playoffstatus.com, and they go ahead and show you the probabilities for each team in the NHL, and that's really neat to me because I always love watching this. But as you see, the Panthers are up to 73% in their chances to get into the playoffs, 25% to get to round 2, and 11% to be the conference champion, which is absolutely fantastic. And as you see, the Devils and the Blue Jackets are down there as well. If they're in red, that means they do not control their own destiny. So right now the Blue Jackets are behind the 8 ball to make the playoffs. The Devils are obviously in that other wild card spot. So it's possible that the Panthers and Devils both get in with the Blue Jackets being left out. But there you go. You can go ahead and look at all your other teams' playoffs probabilities. There you see the Lightning have the most points in the league. And they're obviously at the top, almost a 100% chance to get in. So obviously a very exciting time for the Panthers. I'm extremely excited. As you see, I'm rocking because the Cup shirt from 2012, and then they got in as well in 2016, and if they could get it in 2018, that's a pretty good pace from 4-year gap to a 2-year gap. Maybe they'll get in next year or just have a 1-year gap. We'll see. But really excited to see what the rest of the season holds. I'm going to be tuning in every game that I can when I'm not in a night class or something. But moving on from the Panthers, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Marlins, and this is going to be a very interesting season in Marlins history. Ever since they've moved to Miami, they have not had a winning season. So all 7 of their seasons in Marlins Park have been losing seasons, and that's obviously no bueno. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the biggest performers of spring training thus far. Not a whole lot of games done and under the Marlins belt, but let's go ahead just for fun look at the stats of who has been performing at the highest level at the plate for the Miami Marlins here in spring training. So at the top of the list you see Brinson, the newcomer from the Brewers in that Christian Yelich trade. He has 6 hits on the season, and 4 of those 6 hits are doubles. He's batting .400. He hasn't stolen a base, but he's been caught stealing and has struck out 5 times. But another story that I find incredible is Scott Van Slyke. He had a 2 home run, 5 RBI game, so that's kind of where you see the majority of those RBIs come from. And another 2 of his hits are doubles. So only 2 of his 6 hits are singles, and 4 of them were for extra bases. And as you see, Realmuto is on there as well as Justin Bour, the 2 stars of the team this year. And Starlin Castro, will he stay or not? He's batting a poor .188 on the season. And this always makes me think, let's go ahead and take a look at what the team might look like, or at least what I predict that it will look like coming up for the season. Here is my prediction for the starting lineup on opening day for your Miami Marlins as they take on the Cubs. I'm guessing Dan Straley is going to be on the mound. We don't really have an ace this year. We haven't had an ace since the passing of Jose Fernandez. Dan Straley is probably our best starter out there. But then you're going to have, obviously, Realmuto at catcher, Justin Bour at first. Starlin Castro is most likely going to be at second. I don't think they're going to go ahead and trade him. Rojas is going to be at short. Martin Prado, the veteran and the captain of the team, is going to be at third. Or they might switch Dietrich with Prado. I'm not really sure, but Prado's the veteran here. He'll probably have the seniority at his position. Dietrich in left. The newcomer, Cameron Maybin, in center. And he's not really a newcomer. He's come back to the Marlins after a long stint of being away. And then there is Brinson in right, the newcomer, who I think could have a great season. So an interesting scenario coming up for the Miami Marlins. They're going to have some decisions to make. I think Scott Van Slyke will make the team, as well as a couple other outfielders, just to kind of see, what holes are going to need to be filled in and who else deserves to be on the team. I think Scott Van Slyke, who struggled on the Dodgers with a poor average under 200, has been showing in spring training that he deserves to be at a spring training or a professional level in the major leagues. But I'm not going to go ahead and release my official record prediction just yet. But eventually I will have my full prediction, my full standings, and records for each team. Hopefully that will come sometime just before the season starts in late March. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat have not been playing their best basketball as of late. But they are still hanging on to that 8 seed and still looking to crack that top 8 for the playoff picture. Despite, obviously, the reports of Adam Silver wanting to change the playoff picture to just the best 1 through 16 teams, which I think is a very poor idea. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at the standings right now for the Eastern Conference in the NBA to see how the Heat fare and where they can end up by the end of the season. As you see, the Miami Heat are right above that little red line to get into the playoffs. They are at the 8 seed currently, 33-30, but they're only a game behind the Milwaukee Bucks at that 7 seed and a game and a half behind Philly. Pretty much the 4 through 8 seeds are wide open for anyone who wants it. And right now it seems like the 76ers want it. They are red hot. They're at 7-3, while Miami's only at 4-6 in their last 10 games. And as you see, the Pistons are right on the doorstep too. They're knocking 4 games behind. And they've been in a slump too, only winning 2 of their last 10 games. And the Heat have 2 important games coming up with the Washington Wizards. As you see, they're only 2.5 games behind. If they can win those 2 games in their next 4 matchups, they're going to have a better chance of getting a higher seed than just the 7 or the 8 seed. just like the NHL, playoffstatus.com does the NBA playoff percentages as well. And as you see, the Heat only have a 4% chance not to make the playoffs, and right now control their destiny for the 7 or 8 seed pretty much. They do have a chance to get to that 4 or 5 seed, but they do not control that destiny. That's what those little red numbers mean. And as you see, anyone that's not in the playoff picture currently has over a 90% chance of not making the playoffs, the Pistons being the closest at 92% and only have a 6% chance of getting into the 8 seed, but they do not control their own destiny. And there you go, you can go ahead and look at all the other cool percentages of where, who can get each seed. And as you see, the Knicks, Bulls, Magic, Nets, and Hawks all have been officially eliminated from getting the 1 or 2 seed this season. Moving on to my final topic of the day, the UCF Knights, my future alma mater. And we're going to go ahead and first talk about their baseball team and how hot they've been, and then we're going to move on to basketball as their regular season has just ended, and the AAC tournament is upcoming. I believe it's on March 8th when UCF will take on their first opponent in that tournament, and if they can win that tournament, they will punch their ticket to the Final Four tournament, the big men's basketball tournament, March Madness. It's going to be crazy. And I'll probably have my bracket up for you prior to that big 64-team tournament. But let's go ahead and move on to UCF baseball first. We're going to go ahead and talk about them. They have won 7 straight after starting 2 at 2-3. They were a little bit shaky defensively to start off the year, but since they have cleaned that up and they have woken the bats up, they just won yesterday 12-0. I was on the call, and that it was just another sweep they had. It's their second weekend sweep. They swept last weekend against Savannah State University, and this weekend they swept Wagner. And upcoming, they have a great matchup with the #1 team in the nation, the University of Florida Gators. They will play a home-and-home. Tuesday they will be at UCF, and Wednesday they will be in Gainesville. That will be a fantastic matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I will not be on the call for that, as we're going to leave that to the pros, or just the pro, Mark Daniels, who pretty much does every single UCF sport there is to cover. But without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the standings of just the American Athletic Conference and where UCF sits in relation to all of their opponents in the American Athletic Conference. Not a whole lot to see here as there's been no conference play yet, but as you see, Wichita State, ECU, and then UCF, and then USF. But the Knights have won 6 straight games, pulling themselves from 2-3 to 8-3. And they, as I mentioned, they can only better their standings right now as they play the Gators. A huge challenge, and we'll see how real this team really is in a few days. Now we transition over to basketball, and here's the full bracket for the AAC tournament. And as you see, UCF's going to have a difficult road to go through. They have an easy matchup against ECU. Well, I wouldn't say easy. No matchup is easy in tournaments like these. But they face ECU. Then they'll have to play a tough Houston team, and if they can get through that tough Houston team, they're going to have to play a tough Wichita State team, who they played very well in their previous matchup at home. One more final thing to talk about. UCF alum Shaquem Griffin has been dominating the combine thus far. He put up 20 reps on the bench press, which is 225 pounds, and it just blew up Twitter. And then his second event that he did was the 40-yard dash, which I'm pretty sure every NFL prospect runs when they're invited to the combine. And he put up a 3.48, or no, I'm sorry, a 4.38. 3.48 would be incredible. A 4.38, and Shaquem Griffin, that is the fastest time a linebacker has had since they started recording speed at the combine in 2003. So in 15 years of the combine, Shaquem Griffin ran the fastest time, which is pretty impressive. So I'm looking for him to maybe, a lot of teams take stock in the speed of players, and not only that, he showed his strength as well. So I'm guessing he could move up the draft board and possibly even go somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round. A lot of teams still might doubt him because of the one-hand situation, but originally I thought maybe he'd be lucky to get drafted in the 6th round or the 7th, but now I really am a firm believer that he can prove to these scouts that he is worthy of playing at the highest level of football in the world. So I'm looking forward to him making some noise in the NFL in the upcoming season. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to talk about more Panthers coming up, more NCAA bracket madness, which is going to get absolutely nuts. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Marlins as spring training continues to develop, and obviously as I continue to cover UCF baseball, we're going to go ahead and talk about them as well. But as I said, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it on episode 2 of the South to Central Florida Sports Report. I hope you keep tuning in to future episodes. I'll try and get them out more frequently. I've just had a very busy February, and hopefully March I'll have some more time to spend on this show, maybe release an episode every week or every other week. We'll go ahead and see. But keep looking out, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you automatically get those updates about when I release a new episode. Thanks, guys. Catch y'all on the flip side.